guys, tonight we are not going to be relaxing in a modern, climate-controlled room with blackout curtains and a memory foam mattress. No, tonight we are diving headfirst into a world where comfort is a luxury. A good night's sleep is a genuine achievement, and your alarm clock is a combination of church bells, a panicked chicken, and a man yelling about the quality of his eels. We are traveling back to the late 14th century to the sprawling, noisy, and wonderfully smelly city of London. You are an apprentice, and your trade, fittingly enough, is the art of making pillows. It's a gentle profession in a not-so-gentle world, and to be perfectly honest, given the lack of indoor plumbing and reliable Wi-Fi, you probably wouldn't survive this. But we're not here to survive, we're here to drift. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far these little journeys travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. First thing you're aware of is not a sound, but a feeling. It's the distinct, scratchy texture of a wool blanket that has seen better decades. It's thin, a bit damp from the morning chill that seeps through the wattle and daub walls of your small attic room. You shift, and the movement creates a rustling sound beneath you, a dry, whispering crunch. That's your mattress, a linen sack stuffed generously with straw. It's not exactly ergonomic, and over the months, your body has created a permanent, person-shaped nest in its center. Rolling over is a deliberate act of mountaineering. Then the sounds arrive. They don't fade in gently, they crash the party. First is the deep, resonant clang of a church bell from St. Paul's, miles away but carrying clearly in the cool air. It's the call to matins, the day's first prayer, a signal for the city to rub the sleep from its eyes. Before its echo can fade, it's joined by a chorus of less holy noises. A rooster, possessed by a profound sense of self-importance, crows from a neighboring yard. A dog barks, a sharp, repetitive sound that seems to be arguing with the rooster. And beneath it all, the rumble. The low, grating wooden wheel on cobblestone rumble of an early morning cart, its driver shouting something about fresh fish, his voice a gravelly melody in the urban symphony. This is London's wake-up call. There is no snooze button. You open your eyes. The world is painted in shades of gray and soft brown. A single, small, unglazed window is cut into the thatched roof above you, a perfect square of pale morning sky. It's covered by a wooden shutter that you propped open slightly last night, and through the gap, a hazy silver light filters down, illuminating swirling dust motes that dance like tiny, silent fairies in the air. The light catches on the rough, dark timber beams above your head, crisscrossing the space just a few feet above your face. You know every crack and knot in those beams. One of them looks a bit like a sleeping badger if you squint. You share this cozy attic space with another apprentice, Thomas, who works for the baker downstairs. You can hear him stirring now, another rustle of straw followed by a long, drawn-out groan that suggests he and the concept of morning are not on speaking terms. You both exist in this little pocket of the world, separated by a few feet of floor space but a universe of dreams. Historians still wonder if the notion of privacy, a personal, quiet space, was even a concept for anyone but the very wealthy back then. For you, privacy is turning to face the wall. Slowly, you push the thin blanket aside and sit up. The air is cold and you feel it instantly on your bare arms. Goosebumps rise on your skin. Your clothes are folded in a neat, if slightly lumpy, pile at the foot of your straw mattress. A simple linen undershirt, woolen breeches, and a rough spun tunic the color of oatmeal. Getting dressed is a quick, functional affair, a practiced sequence of movements to minimize contact with the chilly air. You pull on your leather turn shoes, soft and worn, shaped perfectly to your feet. They feel familiar and comforting. The smells of the morning are beginning to drift up through the floorboards. There's the unmistakable, wonderful scent of baking bread from the ovens directly below. That's Thomas's world, a place of flour, yeast, and blistering heat. It mingles with the ever-present, citywide perfume of wood smoke, a thin, acrid smell that clings to everything, and under that, something else, a faint, sour note of old garbage in the nearby river, a reminder that London is a living, breathing creature, and not all of its breath is sweet. The city employs men known as rakers to clear the streets of the worst filth during the night. A truly thankless job, but their efforts are always a temporary victory against the tide of daily life. You stand, stretching your arms towards the low roof, your fingertips crushing the splintery wood of the beams. You move towards a small wooden bucket in the corner, filled with water you hauled up from the communal well last night. The water is achingly cold. You cup your hands, scoop some up, and splash it on your face. It's a shock to the system, a jolt of pure, cold reality that washes away the last cobwebs of sleep. It trickles down your neck, sending a shiver through you. There's no soap, just water and a piece of rough linen for a towel. It's brisk, it's efficient, and it's done. You take a moment and peer out of your small window. From here, you can see a sliver of the world, a narrow, muddy lane below, a patchwork of thatched and timber-framed houses huddled together like gossiping old women. Their upper floors jut out over the street, almost close enough to touch the house opposite, creating a permanent twilight on the road below. In the distance, rising above the jumble of rooftops, you can see the forest of masts from the ships moored on the Thames, and even further, the impossible, magnificent silhouette of London Bridge. It's not just a bridge, it's a living street suspended over the water, famously crammed with houses and shops, a bustling artery of commerce and humanity. You've only been on it a few times, and the sheer chaos of it all, the noise, the crowds, the feeling of the whole structure vibrating with life is something you'll never forget. A sharp clatter from downstairs tells you that your Master Fitzwilliam, is awake and likely already impatient. He's a man who believes sleep is a necessary evil, and mornings are for getting a head start on your competitors. Your job today and every day is to help him create comfort, to take the raw, humble materials of the world, feathers, straw, wool, and linen, and transform them into pillows, soft things for hard times. You are an apprentice pillow maker, a purveyor of good dreams in a city that rarely sleeps. It's a strange sort of poetry, you sometimes think, selling rest to a city that is always restless. You give Thomas a quiet nod as you pass his rustling form. He grunts in reply. You carefully make your way to the wooden ladder that serves as a staircase and begin your descent from your little nest in the rafters down into the heart of the house towards the workshop where your day and our story truly begins. The scent of baking bread grows stronger, a warm, inviting welcome to the day. For a moment, you imagine a life of warm bread instead of dusty feathers, but the thought is fleeting. You have pillows to make. The ladder ends and your feet touch the cold flagstones of the ground floor. You've descended from the sleepy, private world of the attic into the public, working heart of the house. The warm, yeasty smell of bread is still present, but it's no longer the star of the show. Here, it's a background note to the workshop's signature aroma, a dry, dusty, and strangely comforting scent of raw linen, the faint lanolin tang of wool, and the unmistakable, slightly gamey smell of 1,000 feathers. The air itself seems thicker, hazy with a permanent suspension of tiny fibers that catch the morning light slanting in from the open front of the shop. The workshop is also the home's main room. To your left is a large hearth, currently cold and black, where Master Fitzwilliam's wife, Elspeth, will later cook their midday meal. A simple, sturdy table and a couple of stools are pushed against the back wall. This is where domestic life and professional life bleed into one another, a fact of life for almost everyone you know. The idea of a separate workplace you travel to is a concept as foreign as the moon. The workshop is home, and there, standing in the center of it all, is the master of this small universe, Master Fitzwilliam. He is a man built for his trade, solid, stout, with a low center of gravity that suggests he could not be easily knocked over, either by a careless cart driver or a sudden drop in the price of goose down. His hair is a dusty gray, matched by a short, neatly trimmed beard that fails to hide a perpetually unimpressed set of lips. He's wiping his hands on a leather apron worn over his own simple tunic, an apron stained with years of oil, beeswax, and who knows what else. It's his uniform, his shield, his badge of office. He doesn't look up as you approach. He seems to sense your presence the way a spider senses a tremor in its web. You're late, he grunts. His voice is a low rumble like stones grinding together. You know better than to argue. By his internal clock, which is calibrated to the first chirping sparrow, being awake is not enough. You must be present, ready, and anticipating his needs. Being on time means being early. It's the first rule of apprenticeship. The straw in your mattress too comfortable, boy, he asks, finally looking at you. His eyes are a pale, sharp blue, and they miss nothing. They scan your clothes, your hair, the way you're standing. He's checking for signs of sloth, of illness, of anything that might reduce your productivity. No, master, you say, your voice quiet. He makes a non-committal noise in his throat. A sound that could mean anything from "I believe you" to "I will replace you with a trained monkey." If one becomes available, he turns his attention to the great wooden worktable that dominates the room. It's the workshop's main stage. The surface is a geography of past projects scarred with knife cuts, needle pricks, and the dark rings of spilled ale. This is where the magic happens, if you can call it that. It's a slow, deliberate kind of magic. Lying on the table is a bolt of fine, cream-colored linen waiting to be measured and cut. Next to it are the tools of your trade. There are no complex machines here, no marvels of engineering. There is a pair of heavy iron shears, long needles of polished bone and steel stored in a leather roll, block of beeswax for strengthening thread, and a smooth, fist-sized stone used for pressing seams. It's a collection of simple objects, but in the master's hands, they can create objects of sublime comfort. The room is lined with barrels and large burlap sacks. This is the treasury. One sack is filled with clean, dry straw. It's scent sweet and earthy. Another holds rough sheep's wool, still clumpy and smelling faintly of the animal. A third, smaller and more carefully tied, contains the softest carded wool reserved for more expensive commissions. And in the corner, several large, tightly woven bags hold the most precious commodity of all, feathers. Goose, duck, and even chicken feathers, all waiting to be sorted, cleaned, and given a higher purpose than mere flight. Fitzwilliam gestures towards a tall, narrow stool. Sit. We have an order from the Lady Annesley. She finds her head has been resting uncomfortably. She suspects, and I quote, an insufficiency of fluff. He says the last part with a particular kind of deadpan dryness, a vocal eye roll that suggests what he really thinks of the lady's delicate sensibilities. This is the closest he gets to a joke before his second ale of the day. Your job for the first part of the morning is sorting. He points to a smaller bag you hadn't noticed, which is slumped by the leg of the table. From the poulterer's boy, a fresh delivery. You untie the bag and a cascade of gray and white feathers tumbles onto a tray. They're not pristine. They are raw just as they were plucked, and they carry the story of their previous owners. They're dusty, a bit oily, and mixed with all sorts of small, unidentifiable bits of farm life. Your task is to separate the valuable from the worthless. You must patiently pick through the pile, looking for the small, incredibly soft and fluffy feathers from the goose's breast, the down. These are the gold standard, the stuff of dreams. You separate them into a clean wooden bowl. Then come the larger, but still soft, body feathers. They go into a second bowl. The long, stiff light feathers with their hard quills. They're almost useless for a fine pillow. They go into a discard pile, destined perhaps for fletching arrows or more likely to be burned. It is a painstaking, monotonous task. Your fingers, already calloused, move with a learned dexterity, feeling for the subtle differences in texture and weight. It's during these quiet, repetitive moments that you ponder the strange hierarchy of comfort. A king sleeps on a mountain of the finest goose down, his head cradled in a cloud. A wealthy merchant might sleep on a mix of down and soft feathers. A farmer sleeps on straw or wool. And the poorest, they might have nothing but a log or a bundled-up cloak. You are in the business of selling sleep, but the quality of that sleep is dictated entirely by coin. The fact that pillows were so important that a specific guild, the worshipful company of upholders, was formed to regulate their creation among other furnishings is a testament to how seriously people took their bedding. They oversaw the quality of materials, ensuring no unscrupulous maker was stuffing a nobleman's pillow with chicken feathers and charging for goose down. Master Fitzwilliam works at the other end of the table, his shears making a satisfying squeak sound as they slice through the expensive linen. He measures not with a ruler, but with his hands and eyes, a skill born from 30 years of practice. He marks the fabric with a sliver of chalk and cuts in a single, smooth motion. He is a master craftsman, a title earned through a long apprenticeship just like yours. Historians often debate the nature of the master-apprentice relationship. Was it a form of indentured servitude or a paternal bond? Watching Fitzwilliam, you suspect it's a bit of both. He is responsible for your food, your lodging, and your training. In return, you provide your labor, your loyalty, and your unwavering attention. Affection doesn't seem to be part of the contract, but respect certainly is. As you work, the sounds of London filter in through the open front of the shop. A crier walks by, his voice ringing out as he advertises fresh mussels. You hear the clatter of hooves, the rumble of another cart, and a burst of laughter from a group of women at the public well down the street. The workshop is a cave of quiet industry set against the roaring river of the city outside. After an hour, your bowl of pure down is only half full. It takes an incredible number of tiny feathers to fill even a small pillow. It's a humbling lesson in scale. Fitzwilliam inspects your work without a word. He runs his thick fingers through the down you've collected, then through the pile of secondary feathers. He grunts. This time, it's a grunt of approval. It feels like a standing ovation. Not enough, he says, stating the obvious. Lady Annesley's order requires twice this amount for a single pillow, and it must be the finest white goose down, not gray. Not Doug. He looks at you and you know what's coming next. A field trip. Take this purse. Go to the market at Cheapside. Find John Good, the feather merchant. He knows what I like. Don't let him swindle you, and don't get distracted by the jugglers. And for heaven's sake, stay out of the mud. He hands you a small, heavy leather purse. The coins inside clink with a muffled, important sound. It's a huge responsibility. Cheapside Market is the vibrant, chaotic, and often overwhelming heart of London's commerce. Sending you, the apprentice, is a test of your growing competence. It's a sign of trust, a very, very small sign buried under a mountain of grumpiness, but trust all the same. You stand up, your back stiff from sorting, and prepare to venture out into the city on your first quest of the day. You tuck the leather purse securely into your belt, the weight of it a solid, reassuring presence against your side. Master Fitzwilliam gives you one last look, a silent warning that encapsulates an entire lecture on the importance of not losing the money, not getting cheated, and not falling into the Thames. You nod, a gesture of solemn understanding, and step out of the dusty twilight of the workshop into the full-throated chaos of a London morning. The change is instantaneous and assaults all of your senses at once. The air, which inside was merely dusty, is now thick with 100 competing smells. The foundational scent is damp earth, and animal dung, a smell so pervasive you barely notice it most days. But layered on top are countless others, the sharp, salty tang of fish from a nearby monger's stall, the sweet, heavy perfume of honey cakes from a street vendor, the acrid smoke of a blacksmith's forge, and the undeniable, watering stench from a gutter where someone has recently emptied their chamber pot. It's a rich tapestry of life, and you have to breathe it. The sound is a wall. The low rumble you heard from the attic is now a full-blown orchestra of noise. The iron-rimmed wheels of a heavy dray cart groan and clatter over the uneven cobblestones. Just a few feet away, the driver cracking his whip and shouting at his long-suffering horse. People don't talk. They yell. Merchants shout their wares, their voices practiced and loud, designed to cut through the din. Fresh oysters, oysters fresh from the coast, hot pies. Get your mutton pies hot. A group of men are arguing loudly outside a tavern, their words lost in a general roar that also includes the squeal of a pig being herded to slaughter and the distant rhythmic clang of a coppersmith's hammer. You have to navigate this river of humanity with care. The street is narrow, more of a lane than a proper road, and there are no sidewalks. People, horses, carts, and dogs all share the same muddy space. You learn quickly to walk with a kind of defensive awareness, your head on a swivel, constantly anticipating the lurch of a cart or the sudden appearance of a running child. Your master's advice to stay out of the mud is a cruel joke. The center of the street is a veritable bog, a sticky concoction of mud, straw, and refuse. Everyone clings to the edges, walking in single file close to the buildings, creating a constant, shuffling dance of yielding and pushing. Your destination, Cheapside Market, is a 10-minute walk away. As you get closer, crowds grow thicker, the noise louder. Cheapside is one of the widest streets in London. It serves as the city's grand marketplace, a spectacular theater of commerce. The name itself comes from the Old English word seep, meaning to buy or trade. It is, quite literally, the trade side of the city. The sheer variety of goods on display is staggering. You pass a mercer's shop, its front open to the street, displaying bolts of brightly colored silks and velvets from Italy. Next to it, a goldsmith carefully arranges glittering rings and brooches on a black cloth. You see street performers, a man with a dancing bear, a trio of acrobats building a human pyramid, and you remember Fitzwilliam's warning about the jugglers. These are distractions designed to draw a crowd and often to provide cover for the nimble fingers of cut purses. You instinctively place a hand over the coin purse at your belt. You are a small fish in a very large, very turbulent pond carrying your master's money. It makes you a target. Finally, you reach the section of the market dedicated to poultry and related trades. The air here becomes distinctly more agricultural. The smell of live chickens, geese, and ducks is thick and pungent. You hear a chorus of clucking, honking, and quacking, and it is here, among the cages of live birds and the stalls of butchers, that you find the feather merchants. John Good's stall is not much to look at. It's a simple wooden booth fronted by a long trestle table piled high with bags of feathers. John himself is a worried man with a face like a dried apple and clever, darting eyes. He sees you coming and a smile spreads across his face, a smile that is both welcoming and calculating. He is a man who can assess the value of a customer as quickly as he can assess the quality of a bag of feathers. "Ah, young man, from Master Fitzwilliam's workshop, I'll be bound," he says, his voice cheerful. "Come for the good stuff, have you? The cloud fluff, the goose dream filling." He has a salesman's poetry. You try to adopt the stern, no-nonsense demeanor of your master. Master Fitzwilliam needs a sack of his usual, the finest white goose down. For a pillow for the Lady Annesley, you add the last part to signal that this is a high-status commission and no second-rate feathers will do. This is a subtle part of the negotiation, a dance you're just learning. John Good's eyes twinkle. He knows the game. "Ah, for her ladyship. Of course, of course. Only the best for her noble head." He disappears behind his stall for a moment and returns with a medium-sized burlap sack. It looks disappointingly small for the price you know he's going to ask. He unties the top and plunges his hand in, pulling out a fistful of the contents. He holds it out to you. It is, you have to admit, magnificent. It's a cloud of pure, brilliant white. The down is incredibly fine and light, with none of the larger, coarser body feathers mixed in. It looks like a handful of freshly fallen snow. This is what you came for. The actual process of harvesting down was a lesser-known, quirky detail of medieval life. Some feathers were gathered after a bird was slaughtered for meat. The most valuable down was often harvested from live geese. Farmers would pluck the soft breast feathers from the birds several times a year. Historians debate how widespread this practice was, as it was labor-intensive. But for the highest quality down, it was likely the preferred method, ensuring the feathers were mature and clean. You take a pinch between your thumb and forefinger, rubbing it gently. You're checking for the telltale presence of hard quill nibs or the slickness of cheaper duck feathers. It feels perfect, soft, springy, and weightless. The best in all of London, John Good says, watching you. Plucked from geese that graze on the finest river grass. Happy geese make for soft down, that's what I always say. You doubt the geese were particularly happy about the plucking process, but you don't say that. Now comes the hard part, the haggling. Fitzwilliam has given you a very specific amount of money and a very specific instruction. Don't pay him more than 2 shillings for the sack. You steal yourself. How much? John Good names his price. For you, my boy, a special price. 2 shillings and 6 pence. You almost falter. 6 pence over your limit. It's a small fortune. For 6 pence, you could buy a dozen meat pies or enough ale to make a whole room of apprentices very happy. You shake your head, trying to look disappointed, as if you've just found a chicken feather in the mix. Master Fitzwilliam said I'm not to pay a penny over 2 shillings, you say firmly. The merchant feigns a look of deep injury. 2 shillings for this. The down that dreams are made on. The boy thinks I'm a charity. He launches into a long, theatrical speech about the cost of feed, the dangers of foxes, and the general ingratitude of the pillow-making industry. You stand your ground, your face set in a mask of polite disinterest. This is the negotiation, the expected ritual. He isn't really angry, and you aren't really leaving. After a few more minutes of back and forth, a sigh of resignation, and a dramatic appeal to the heavens, he finally slaps the table. All right, the boy's a hard bargain. 2 shillings it is. But you tell your master he's robbing me blind. You count out the coins, your hand slightly trembling. The exchange is made. You now hold the precious sack of white gold. You tie it securely and hoist it over your shoulder. It's surprisingly light for its value. Your quest is complete. Now you just have to make it back through the jungle of Cheapside without spilling your prize. You give John Good a curt nod and turn back into the flow of the crowd, your mind already on the next stage of the pillow's journey, the washing, the drying, and the slow, careful process of turning this handful of fluff into a vessel for a noble woman's dreams. Hoisting the sack of pristine goose down over your shoulder, you feel a small surge of victory. You have successfully navigated the treacherous waters of Cheapside Market, engaged in the ancient art of haggling, and emerged with the prize. The sack is feather light, almost comically so for the price you paid, and you hold it protectively as you begin the journey back to the workshop. Return trip seems easier, perhaps because your focus is no longer on the quest for feathers, but on the craft that awaits them. As you weave your way through the throng, your attention shifts from the grand displays of the wealthy merchants to the more humble scenes of everyday life playing out in the side alleys and doorways. You see a woman sitting on a stool, diligently mending a worn-out tunic. You see two men sharing a loaf of dark bread, breaking it with their hands. You see children, their faces smudged with dirt, playing a game with knuckle bones in the dirt. These are the people who will not be sleeping on pillows of goose down. Their nights are supported by far humbler materials, and you, as an apprentice, are just as familiar with those. When you arrive back at the workshop, the air inside feels cool and blessedly quiet after the sensory overload of the street. Master Fitzwilliam is still at his great table, but he is no longer cutting fine linen. He is working on a different kind of order entirely. On the table before him is a pile of coarse, unbleached linen sacks, roughly stitched and brutally functional. Next to him is a massive burlap bag overflowing with clean, golden straw. He is making pillows for the rest of us. He glances at the sack you're carrying. Any trouble? He asks for 2 and 6 pence. I paid 2 shillings, you say, a note of pride in your voice. That corner of Fitzwilliam's mouth twitches, the highest form of praise you're likely to receive. Good. He always tries his luck with apprentices. Put the down in the dry chest. Don't let so much as a breeze look at it. Her ladyship's pillow can wait. Today we have an order for 6 bed ticks for the inn at the sign of the Crooked Billet. You carefully place the precious sack of down into a heavy, lidded wooden chest in the corner of the room, a special storage place to keep it dry and free from pests. Then you join him at the table. Your task for the next few hours will be a world away from sorting the delicate plumage of geese. It is time for some serious stuffing. The bed ticks are essentially mattress casings, and the pillows that go with them are just smaller versions of the same. The linen is thick and scratchy, woven not for comfort against the skin, but for durability. It has to withstand being slept on by countless travelers, thrown on the floor, and subjected to all manner of abuse. Your job is simple. Take a linen sack, stuff it with straw until it is firm, and stitch it closed. It sounds easy, but like everything in this craft, there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. Fitzwilliam demonstrates his movements economical and precise. He doesn't just jam the straw in. He feeds it in handful by handful, using a smooth wooden stick like a giant chopstick to push it firmly into the corners. No lumps, he grunts, his voice slightly muffled as he leans over his work. A lumpy pillow is a lazy pillow. The man who sleeps on it will curse your name in the morning. Pack it tight. It will settle. You take a sack and begin to emulate him. The straw is dry and brittle. It makes a constant, satisfying rustle as you work it into the casing. The smell is clean and earthy, the scent of a harvested field. It's a pleasant smell, but it's not the scent of luxury. It's the scent of practicality. A straw pillow offers support. It lifts the head from the hard floor or bed frame, and that is its sole purpose. It is not about softness or a feeling of being cradled. It is about function. This was the reality for the vast majority of people in the 14th century. A simple pillow filled with straw, or for the slightly more affluent, with wool, was the standard. The historical fact is that a good night's sleep was a practical concern, not an indulgent one. A well-rested laborer could work harder, a soldier could march further, sleep was fuel. Even the materials used for stuffing tell a story of class and economy. Straw was the cheapest and most abundant. It was also, unfortunately, a 5-star hotel for fleas, lice, and other uninvited bedfellows. For this reason, the straw in mattresses and pillows had to be changed relatively often, ideally once or twice a year, to maintain some semblance of hygiene. You work in a steady rhythm, your hands becoming coated in a fine layer of straw dust. You push, pack, and smooth, feeling for any voids or clumps within the linen sack. Beside you, Master Fitzwilliam works with a speed that is both inspiring and disheartening. He finishes the pillows in the time it takes you to complete one. His stitches are a perfect straight line of tough wax thread, each one identical to the last. Your own stitches are enthusiastic, a little wobbly. He notices, of course. Pull the thread tighter, he advises without looking up from his work. Imagine you're sewing a sail for a ship in a storm. These stitches see hard use. You pull the thread tighter, the tough linen resisting the needle. Your fingers are already starting to ache. This is the unglamorous side of the craft. 10 no noble ladies or poetic descriptions of cloud fluff here. This is bulk production. This is the bread and butter of the business, or rather, the straw and linen. The lesser-known detail here is the variety of hard pillows that were also common. We think of pillows as universally soft. Many people, particularly the wealthy, often slept with their head propped on a solid block of wood or even stone. These weren't for comfort in the modern sense, but were often ornately carved and used to protect elaborate hairstyles during the night. So, in a way, your firm straw pillow is a step up in comfort from a decorative log. It's all about perspective. As you work, you think about the travelers who will sleep on these pillows at the crooked billet. Merchants, pilgrims, messengers, perhaps even a knight on his way to a tournament. Each of them, at the end of a long, wearying day on the road, will lay their head down on your handiwork. They notice the evenness of the stuffing. Probably not, but they would certainly notice if it were lumpy or slack. In this way, even in this humble task, there is a quiet pride. You are contributing in a small way to the comfort of strangers. You are a small, unthanked part of their journey. Historians still wonder about the dreams of the common person in the Middle Ages. Did they dream of fantastical beasts and chivalrous quests as the popular romances of the time suggest? Or were their dreams more mundane, filled with the anxieties of a bad harvest, rising prices, or the health of their children? As you stuff a pillow with the very straw that might have come from a farmer's field, you wonder what that farmer dreamed of. Perhaps you think he just dreamed of a good night's sleep on a pillow not so different from the one you are making right now. Pile of finished pillows grows steadily on the floor beside the workbench. They are stout, unpretentious, and identical. They look like a row of well-fed loaves of bread. The air is thick with straw dust, and you can feel it in the back of your throat. Your hands are scratched and your fingers are sore, but there is a deep satisfaction in the physical labor in the transformation of a pile of raw materials into a stack of finished goods. You have made something useful, something necessary, and in a world of uncertainty there is a profound comfort in that simple fact. With the last of the straw pillows for the crooked billet and stitched shut, and stacked like firewood against the wall, a new phase of the day begins. The robust, earthy smell of straw recedes. As Master Fitzwilliam clears the great worktable, wiping away the golden dust with a damp cloth. The air, for a moment, smells clean and damp, but it's a fleeting peace. Now, you must turn your attention back to the sack of pristine goose down you procured from the market. It is time to prepare the filling for Lady Annesley's pillow, a process far more delicate and surprisingly more pungent than stuffing sacks with straw. It is time for the great, not-so-great feather wash. Fitzwilliam retrieves the precious sack from the dry chest. Even in the dim light of the workshop, the down inside seems to glow, but its raw beauty is deceptive. Cleanliness is next to godliness, he says, quoting a proverb that won't officially exist for another few centuries, but the sentiment is timeless. With feathers, it's the most important step. Her ladyship doesn't want her dream smelling of the goose yard. He leads you out of the workshop and into the small, enclosed courtyard behind the house. This is the domestic engine room, a space shared with the baker and a handful of other tenants. There's a communal well in the center with a wooden bucket on a rope, a few scraggly herb bushes growing in a patch of dirt, and a washing line strung between two buildings. It is here that the messy work happens. In the center of the yard are 3 large wooden tubs which you and Thomas, the baker's boy, filled from the well earlier this morning as part of your daily chores. The water is cold and clear. Fitzwilliam instructs you to fetch a small sack of soapwood from a hanging bunch of dried herbs. Near the back door, this is your cleaning agent. When the roots and leaves of the soapwood plant are crushed and agitated in water, they produce a gentle, lathery soap, a natural detergent used for centuries to wash delicate textiles like wool and, in your case, feathers. This historical fact is a testament to a time when chemistry was just a clever observation of nature. People knew that certain plants could cut through grease and dirt, without the harshness of lye-based soaps, which would be too damaging for the delicate down. You crumble the dried soapwood into the first tub of water and begin to swish it around. With your hands, the water slowly becomes slick and begins to form a thin layer of suds. It smells faintly green and earthy. Now for the feathers. Fitzwilliam carefully, gently empties about 1/3 of the goose down into the soapy water. The immediate effect is anticlimactic. The down, being naturally water resistant thanks to the oils that keep a goose dry, simply floats on the surface in a clumpy, defiant mass. It looks like a sad, disintegrating cloud. Now, Fitzwilliam says, rolling up his sleeves, the trick is to be gentle but firm. You must force the water in, but without breaking the feathers. You both plunge your hands into the shockingly cold water. Your job is to submerge the floating clumps of down and gently squeeze them, working the soapy water into the fibers to wash away the natural oils, dust, and any other microscopic grime. The sensation is bizarre. The down feels slick and unsubstantial under the water, and the cold seeps into your bones almost immediately. Your fingers quickly become numb, turning a pale, waxy color. This is where the less than pleasant smell comes in. The combination of water and raw feathers releases a distinct, gamey odor. It's the smell of a wet bird and earthy, slightly funky perfume that will cling to your hands and clothes for the rest of the day. It's not overpowering, but it is pervasive. You can now fully appreciate why this part of the job is done out in the open air of the courtyard. You work in silence for a while, the only sounds being the gentle sloshing of the water and the distant, ever-present hum of the city after a few minutes of washing. The water in the first tub has turned a murky gray. It's amazing how much dirt was hiding in that seemingly pristine fluff. Next, you must transfer the wet, heavy clumps of down to the second tub, which is filled with clean rinse water. This is a delicate operation. Can't just grab them, you have to scoop them up from below with both hands, letting the dirty water drain away through your fingers. The wet down is heavy and pathetic looking, nothing like the airy cloud it was before. You plunge it into the rinse water and the process begins again, squeezing, swishing, rinsing away the soap and the last of the dirt. Then, you repeat the process one more time in the third and final tub of clean water. By the end, the down is thoroughly saturated, clean, and weighs about 10 times what it did when dry. Now comes the most critical and time-consuming part of the process, drying. The down is not dried quickly and completely. It will mildew. Pillow filled with mildewed feathers is not just unpleasant, it's a health hazard. Fitzwilliam lays out a large, clean linen sheet on a patch of cobblestones that gets the most direct sunlight. You carefully scoop the clean, wet down from the final rinse tub and spread it as thinly as possible across the sheet. It's a painstaking task separating the clumps with your cold, stiff fingers to maximize the surface area exposed to the sun and air. This is where a lesser-known, quirky detail of the trade comes in. To speed up the drying process and prevent the down from clumping as it dries, pillow makers would often employ fluffers, usually children or apprentices like you armed with thin, flexible sticks. Your job would be to gently beat or fluff the drying feathers every hour or so. This constant agitation keeps the down separated, allowing air to circulate and ensuring each tiny fiber dries completely. It's a long, tedious process that can take a full day or even longer, depending on the weather. A cloudy day is a pillow maker's enemy. Historians still wonder about the specific methods and tools used for this fluffing process. Their specialized feather rakes are just simple sticks. How did they protect the drying down from a sudden rain shower or a gust of wind that could send their expensive products scattering across the city? Most likely it involved a lot of improvisation and a constant, worried scanning of the sky. Gently tap and flick the drying down with your switch, watching as the clumps break apart. With each pass, the down becomes a little lighter, a little fluffier. It's a slow, hypnotic transformation. You are like a patient gardener tending a strange white crop. As the hours pass, the pungent smell of wet feathers slowly dissipates, replaced by a clean, dry, almost neutral scent. The down begins to regain its former glory, lifting and expanding, becoming light and airy once more. You can now see the true quality of what you bought at the market. It is pure, soft, and brilliantly white. It is fit for a lady. Your hands are raw and your back aches from bending over, but as you watch the breeze gently lift a few stray, perfectly dry filaments of down into the air, you feel a quiet sense of accomplishment. You have taken something raw and dirty and made it pure. The foundation for a good night's sleep is now ready and waiting. The sun has climbed to its highest point in the sky, a bright, indifferent coin directly overhead. It beats down on the cobblestones of the courtyard, warming them to the touch and, more importantly, working its slow magic on your vast, thin layer of goose down. The feathers are noticeably drier now, lighter. A few errant fluffs occasionally lift on a stray breeze, dancing in the air for a moment before settling again. The work of fluffing them with the willow control switch has fallen into a steady, meditative rhythm. Just as your stomach begins to rumble a complaint, Master Fitzwilliam's head appears in the doorway of the workshop. Boy, he calls out. His voice is sharp as ever. Midday, 30 minutes, no more. This brief, begrudging permission to cease labor and consume sustenance is delivered with the warmth of a tax collector. The overwhelming generosity is almost too much to bear. You put down your fluffing stick and rise, your knees cracking in protest. Your hands, now dry, still feel chilled to the bone from their long immersion in the wash water. You head inside, where Elspeth, your master's wife, has set out your midday meal on the corner of the large worktable. She is a quiet, bird-like woman who moves through the workshop with a practiced efficiency, navigating the chaos of her husband's trade without ever seeming to be in the way. She gives you a small, quick smile, a silent acknowledgement of your shared existence in the orbit of Master Fitzwilliam. The meal is the definition of simple. It is a thick slab of dark bread, a small wedge of hard cheese, and a wooden mug of ale. That's it. There is no plate. The bread is your plate. It's a dense, heavy rye bread from the bakery downstairs, still faintly warm. The crust is thick and chewy, the inside coarse and a little sour. It's the kind of bread that demands your full attention to chew. The cheese is hard, salty, and aggressively yellow. It's strong enough to challenge a passing rat to a duel and win. The ale is what is known as small beer. It's watery and low in alcohol, brewed more for hydration and calories than for intoxication. In a city where the water from the river or even the public wells could be dangerously unsanitary, this weak ale is the safest thing to drink. It is, for all intents and purposes, your water, your soup, and your morale boost all in one. You take your meal and head back out to the courtyard, the sun-warmed space being far more pleasant than the dusty interior. You find a spot with your back against the rough brick wall of the neighboring building, the warmth seeping through your thin tunic. A moment later, you're joined by your attic mate Thomas, the baker's apprentice. He is covered in a fine dusting of white flour, which has settled in his eyebrows and eyelashes, giving him the look of a startled ghost. He carries a similar meal, though his bread is a fresher, finer white loaf, a perk of the job. Still whipping feathers, he asks, his mouth already full of bread. Still playing in the fire, you retort. He smells of soot and yeast, a stark contrast to your own faint aroma of wet bird. Master Pelham says the ovens aren't hot enough. I told him if they were any hotter, we could bake the devil himself a meat pie, Thomas grumbles before taking a long pull from his mug of ale. Soon, a third apprentice joins your small circle. It's William, who works for the chandler 2 doors down. He smells of beeswax and, on less fortunate days, of tallow-rendered animal fat used for cheap candles. Today is a beeswax day, a sweet, honeyed scent that is a vast improvement. His fingers are stained yellow from the wax. He sits down with a sigh, holding his own hunk of bread and cheese. The bishop's church needs 500 beeswax candles by Sunday, he says, as if this explains all the world's ills. My master is in a state. He says my wicks are crooked. How can a wick be crooked? It's a piece of string. This is the nature of your conversations. A gentle, familiar litany of complaints about your masters, the small injustices of your day, and the endless, repetitive nature of your tasks. It's a way of blowing off steam, of reminding each other that you're all in the same leaky boat. You complain about Fitzwilliam's grumpiness and your freezing hands. Thomas complains about the blistering heat of the ovens. William complains about the tedium of dipping candles. It is a bond forged in shared servitude. This simple meal of bread, cheese, and ale is a common one. The widely accepted historical fact is that for most working people, the main meal of the day was centered around bread. Pottage, a thick, perpetually simmering stew of grains, vegetables, and occasionally a scrap of meat, was a staple in many households, but for an apprentice on a short break, a portable meal like this was more practical. You eat with your hands, using a small personal knife to cut the cheese. The manners are not fancy, but they are functional. You take a bite of the cheese and a swig of the ale, the salty, sharp flavor washed down by the cool, watery liquid. You look at your companions. Thomas with his flour-dusted face, William with his wax-stained fingers, you with your feather-fluffing switch lying beside you. Each of you is learning a craft, a mystery. You are being shaped, day by day, into a master of your own trade. Saw the alistake is out at the Nag's Head, Thomas says, changing the subject. Fresh batch. This is a quirky, lesser-known detail of medieval city life. Taverns and alehouses didn't have permanent signs in the way we think of them. To announce that a new, fresh batch of ale was ready for sale, the proprietor would hang an alastake, a long pole, often with a bush or garland tied to the end out of an upper window. It was a temporary, universally understood signal. The good stuff is here. Its appearance was always a cause for minor celebration. Maybe we can get a proper pint after Vespers, William suggests, his eyes lighting up at the thought of a strong, flavorful ale rather than the weak stuff you're drinking now. If Fitzwilliam doesn't have me stitching by candlelight, you add, and the others nod in sympathy. Your free time is not your own. It is granted, and it can be taken away. Historians still wonder what ordinary people, and especially young apprentices, did for leisure. Legal records and official holidays like Saints' Days give us a partial picture of festivals, fairs, and church ales. But what about the quiet hours at the end of a long day? Did you gather in taverns? Did you play games of dice or drafts in a courtyard like this one? Did you simply fall onto your straw mattress, too exhausted to do anything but sleep? The daily texture of fun, relaxation for the common person remains one of history's most elusive subjects, pieced together from fleeting mentions and educated guesses. The 30 minutes pass in what feels like 5. The sun has begun its slow descent on the other side of the sky. Bell from a nearby church chimes the hour, a clear, resonant sound that serves as your collective back-to-work alarm. Master Fitzwilliam's voice follows a moment later, as predictable as the bell itself. Boy, those feathers won't fluff themselves. With a collective groan, your small company disbands. Thomas drains his mug and heads back to his inferno. William gives a resigned wave and returns to his wicks. And you, after giving the feathers one last turn with your switch, walk back into the cool, dusty workshop. The break is over. Your hands, still holding the faint scent of rye and ale, must now prepare for the delicate, precise work of stitching. You step back into the workshop, leaving the sun-drenched courtyard and the lingering camaraderie of your fellow apprentices behind. The air inside is still and thick with the scent of raw textiles. Master Fitzwilliam is standing at the great work table upon which he has unrolled the bolt of fine, cream-colored linen intended for Lady Annesley's pillow. Fabric cascades over the edge of the table, its smooth, tightly woven surface a world away from the coarse sacking you were wrestling with this morning. It seems to absorb the light, glowing with a soft, buttery luminescence. Fitzwilliam has already done the cutting. 2 perfect rectangles of linen lie on the table, their edges flawlessly straight. His shears, heavy and dark, rest beside them. The feathers are nearly dry, he says without looking at you. It's not a question, it's an observation that implies the next phase of work is imminent. It is time to make the casing. Come, watch. This is a critical moment in your apprenticeship. Stuffing pillows with straw is grunt work, and washing feathers is a messy chore. The sewing of a fine linen casing is an art form. It is a test of precision, patience, and dexterity. A single sloppy stitch, a crooked seam, or a pulled thread can ruin the entire piece, wasting expensive material and hours of labor. This is where a pillow maker earns his reputation. He gestures for you to take the stool beside him. You sit, your hands clasped in your lap, trying to appear attentive and competent, a difficult task when you can still feel a bit of cheese stuck in your teeth. Fitzwilliam picks up one of the linen rectangles. First seam, he begins, his voice dropping into a rare, instructional tone, is the soul of the pillow. It must be strong, straight, and invisible. He folds the fabric in half, aligning the edges with a precision that seems impossible for his thick, callous fingers. He uses no pins. His hands and eyes are his only guides. He then picks up a needle, not of bone, but of fine polished steel from Spain, a testament to the quality of his tools. He takes a long strand of linen thread from a wooden spool and draws it through a block of beeswax. Why the wax? He asks, quizzing you. To strengthen the thread, master, you answer promptly, and to keep it from dangling. He gives a single, sharp nod of approval. He threads the needle with a quick, deft movement and ties a small, neat knot at the end of the thread. Then he begins to sew. He is not using a simple running stitch. He is using a backstitch. To each stitch, his needle goes forward into the fabric, but then goes back half a length to begin the next stitch from the middle of the previous one. The result is a continuous, unbroken line of thread that looks remarkably like it was made by a machine. It is incredibly strong and ensures that not even the smallest wisp of down can escape through the seam. The historical fact is that many of the fundamental hand-sewing stitches we know today, the backstitch stitch, the running stitch. The whip stitch were already perfected and in common use in the medieval period. They were essential skills for everyone from the lady of the manor embroidering a tapestry to the apprentice pillow maker sewing a seam. You watch, mesmerized. His hands move with a steady, unhurried rhythm. The needle dips and rises, a tiny silver fish swimming through a sea of cream-colored linen. The only sound is the faint shift of the wax thread pulling through the tightly woven fabric. He makes it look effortless, but you know from your own clumsy attempts on scraps of linen that it is anything but. It requires immense concentration and muscle memory built up over years. After he has sewn a few inches, he pushes the work towards you. Your turn. The second side. Do not shame me. Your heart gives a little flutter. This is a test. He is entrusting you with the expense of linen. Your hands feel large and clumsy as you pick up your own needle and thread. You mimic his actions. Waxing the thread, tying the knot, you take a deep breath and make your first stitch. The needle feels awkward in your fingers. You push it through the 2 layers of linen, the fabric resisting more than you expect. You try to replicate his perfect backstitch, moving forward then back. Your first few stitches are uneven. One is too long, the next too short. The tension is all wrong, causing the fabric to pucker slightly. You can feel Fitzwilliam's eyes on you, a palpable weight. You grit your teeth and focus, trying to slow down to find the rhythm. You are not wrestling a pig, boy, he says, his voice dry. Let the needle do the work. Your hand is just a guide. Feel the fabric. You take another breath and try again. You focus on the tiny entry and exit points of the needle, on keeping the length of each stitch exactly the same. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to find a rhythm. The stitches become more even. The line they form begins to straighten out. It's not as perfect as your master's, not by a long shot, but it is functional. It is strong. It is adequate. This brings up a quirky, lesser-known detail about medieval craftsmanship. Though we often romanticize the idea of the master artisan creating a flawless masterpiece, the reality was often a team effort. The master would typically perform the most difficult or visible parts of the work, like Fitzwilliam cutting the fabric and sewing the first critical seam, while apprentices and journeymen would handle the more repetitive or less visible sections. A single object, from a cathedral to a simple pillow, was often the product of many hands of varying skill levels. Your slightly wobbly seam would likely end up on the bottom of the pillow, a silent testament to your ongoing education. As you sew, the world outside the workshop fades away. The shouts of the street vendors, the clatter of carts, it all becomes a distant hum. Your entire universe shrinks to the point of your needle, the line of the seam, the feel of the thread pulling taut. This is the meditative core of the craft. It's a state of deep focus that is both draining and deeply satisfying. Historians still wonder about the transmission of these intricate skills. Fitzwilliam isn't using a textbook or a diagram. He is teaching you through demonstration, observation, and terse verbal correction. This oral and kinetic tradition was the backbone of the medieval guild system, but how did they ensure consistency? How were new techniques developed and shared? Was there a secret language of craft? A vocabulary of stitches and techniques known only to the initiated? The silence in the workshop, punctuated only by the whisper of thread, feels like a clue. The knowledge is in the hands, in the eyes, in the doing. You reach the corner of the pillow casing and pause, unsure how to proceed. Fitzwilliam, without a word, takes the needle from you. He shows you how to reinforce the corner with several tiny overlapping stitches, creating a strong point that will resist the pressure of the stuffing. Then he turns the fabric and begins the third side himself, his own stitches once again a model of serene perfection. When he is done, he hands it back to you. Finish it. Leave a hand's width open for the stuffing. You take up the casing, which is now a 3-sided pouch. You sew the final side, your own stitches growing more confident with every inch. By the time you reach the end, leaving the prescribed gap, you feel a sense of profound accomplishment. You have not shamed him. Casing is complete. It is a simple object, a bag of linen, but it is a well-made bag, strong and precise, ready to be filled with the dreams of a noble woman. You hold it up, and in the dim light of the workshop, it looks, to you at least, like a masterpiece. The finished linen casing lies on the work table, a pale and empty vessel. It is perfectly stitched. Your slightly less than perfect seam hidden discreetly along one edge, the goose down, which you periodically fluff during your stitching lesson, is now bone dry, resting in a clean basket in the corner of the workshop. It has regained its full, glorious volume. A veritable cloud of white fluff that seems to hum with latent softness. The components are ready, but the day's work is not yet done. Just as you begin to think about the simple act of uniting stuffing and casing, the small bell tied to the workshop door jingles. A man enters, stooping slightly to clear the low door frame. He is dressed not in the rough homespun of an apprentice or the leather apron of a craftsman, but in a fine woolen tunic of a deep, rich blue. Color itself is a statement of wealth, as such vibrant dyes are expensive. He is the personal servant of a man named Thomas Knowles, a prominent member of the Grocers' Company, a powerful guild of merchants who deal in spices, dried fruits, and other imported luxuries. This man, however, is a wool merchant, a magnate whose fortunes are built on the backs of English sheep. He nods curtly at Master Fitzwilliam, a greeting between men who understand the hierarchies of the city. Master Fitzwilliam, the servant says, his voice smooth and practiced. My master. Thomas Knowles sends his compliments. He requires a new pillow for his wife. It is her name day. Next week. Fitzwilliam, who was inspecting your stitching on the casing, looks up. His expression doesn't change, but you can see a flicker of interest in his eyes. A new commission from a wealthy merchant is always welcome. The inns and common folk pay the rent, but the gentry and rich merchants provide the profit. What does he require? Fitzwilliam asks, his tone all business. Finest linen, of course, the servant says, gesturing vaguely at the bolt on your table. Stuffed with your best goose down. But the mistress has a special request. She desires the pillow to be fragrant. She wishes for herbs to be mixed with the down, and she would like her husband's merchant's mark embroidered on one corner. This is a special commission, a step above even Lady Annesley's order. It involves not just craftsmanship, but artistry, embroidery, herb lore. This is bespoke comfort. Fitzwilliam nods slowly, his mind already calculating the cost of materials and labor. The servant produces a small, rolled-up piece of parchment and hands it to your master. On it is drawn a simple, elegant design, a stylized letter K intertwined with a sprig of what looks like wool-bearing teasel. This is the merchant's mark, a unique symbol used to identify his goods like a modern corporate logo. It would be stamped on his wool bales, inscribed on his ledgers, and now embroidered on his wife's pillow. The mistress favors the scents of lavender and chamomile, the servant adds, for restful sleep. Fitzwilliam examines the mark. It will be done, he says. Tell your master it will be ready in 3 days' time. The servant gives another curt nod, turns, and is gone, the bell on the door giving a final, polite jingle. For a moment, there is silence in the workshop. Then Fitzwilliam unrolls the parchment again and looks at the merchant's mark. He then looks at you. You know your embroidery stitches. You do. Elspeth, your master's wife, is a skilled embroiderer and has taught you the basics on scraps of fabric during the long winter evenings. The chain stitch, the stem stitch, the satin stitch. It was considered a useful, if secondary, skill for a boy in your trade. You can create a simple, clean line. You are not an artist, but you are competent. Yes, master, you say. He points to a small wooden chest where Elspeth keeps her embroidery supplies. Find a dark blue silk thread, the color of that man's tunic, will please the merchant. He then turns his attention back to Lady Annesley's pillow casing. But first, we finish this while I close the final scene. Your job is to prepare the herbs. This is a fascinating and historically accurate aspect of medieval bedding. Pillows were often filled with more than just feathers or straw. Herbal pillows filled with a blend of dried herbs and flowers were incredibly popular, not just for their pleasant aroma, but for their perceived medicinal and psychological benefits. They were the original aromatherapy. People believed that inhaling the scent of certain herbs as you slept could cure headaches, ward off nightmares, calm the nerves, or even induce prophetic dreams. Fitzwilliam directs you to a corner of the workshop you rarely touch. Here, hanging from the rafters, are dozens of bunches of dried herbs, their leaves and flowers rustling in the slight draft from the door. Here is a complex perfume of floral, spicy, and medicinal scents. As you take down bundles of dried lavender and chamomile, the 2 herbs requested by the merchant's wife. Your task is to strip the tiny, fragrant flower buds from their dry, brittle stems. You do this over a large, clean wooden bowl. As you crumble the lavender between your fingers, a powerful, clean scent fills the air, a wave of purple-scented calm. It's a scent you associate with clean linen and wealthy houses. The chamomile flowers are smaller, like tiny, faded daisies, and their scent is more subtle, sweet, and apple-like. This is a gentle, pleasant task. It's a far cry from the pungent ordeal of washing the feathers. As your fingers work, you think about the woman who will sleep on this pillow. You imagine her sinking her head into a cloud of soft down, inhaling the calming scents of lavender and chamomile, and drifting into a peaceful, untroubled sleep. You are crafting not just a physical object, but an experience. A lesser-known, quirky detail is the sheer variety of herbs used and the specificity of their supposed effects. Herbs were used to promote deep sleep much like they do in beer. Rose petals were thought to bring pleasant, romantic dreams. Mint was believed to keep the sleeper from snoring, while rosemary was thought to improve memory. The idea being that you would absorb knowledge even as you slept. Historians still debate how much of this was based on genuine, observable effects versus pure folklore and tradition. Was the calming effect of lavender a real physiological response? Was it simply a powerful placebo, a scent associated with rest and luxury? While you are preparing the herbs, Fitzwilliam begins the delicate process of stuffing Lady Annesley's pillow. He doesn't just jam the down in. He feeds it into the casing in small, light handfuls, using his fingers to distribute it evenly, ensuring there are no lumps or empty spaces. He is like a sculptor shaping the pillow from the inside out. Once it is perfectly full, firm but yielding, he will take up his needle and sew the final gap closed with a series of tiny, invisible stitches. You finish stripping the herbs and present the bowl to him for inspection. It's a colorful mix of pale yellow chamomile heads and deep purple lavender buds. The combined fragrance is heavenly. Fitzwilliam grunts in approval. This mixture will be carefully blended with the goose down for the nose's pillow tomorrow. For now, your final task of the day is to begin the embroidery. Fitzwilliam stretches a small piece of the fine linen in a wooden embroidery hoop and hands it to you, along with the parchment drawing of the merchant's mark and a spool of deep blue silk thread. You take it over to the stool near the front of the shop, where the last of the daylight is strongest. You thread your needle with the shimmering silk. Your hands, which have hauled water, sorted filthy feathers, wrestled with coarse straw, and stitched heavy linen, must now be delicate. You make the first tiny stitch of the letter K, the blue silk stark. Beautiful line against the cream-colored fabric. It's another world of craft, another quiet, focused art. As you work, the sounds of London beginning to wind down for the evening filter in, a gentle accompaniment to your slow, careful stitches. The light from the open shop front is beginning to fade, turning from the crisp white of afternoon to a softer, warmer gold. The shadows in the workshop are lengthening, stretching out from the legs of the table and the barrels along the wall like long, sleepy fingers. You are hunched over the embroidery hoop, your world once again shrunk to a tiny focal point. The deep blue silk thread glides through the linen, a slow and steady process. You are outlining the elegant curves of the merchant's initial, your stitches becoming more confident, and even as you settle into the rhythm of the work, Master Fitzwilliam has finished closing the seam on Lady Annesley's pillow. He holds it up, turning it over in his hands, inspecting it from every angle. He punches it a few times, testing its loft and resilience. The pillow puffs back up instantly, a perfect, yielding cloud encased in fine linen. It is a masterpiece of understated luxury. Satisfied, he wraps it carefully in a clean cloth and sets it aside, ready for delivery. He walks over to the table where you have been working with the herbs. He runs his fingers through the bowl of dried lavender and chamomile, releasing another wave of calming fragrance into the dusty air. He seems, for a moment, lost in thought. His usual gruffness has softened in the quiet of the approaching evening. It is in these rare, unguarded moments that he sometimes chooses to share a piece of his vast, unspoken knowledge. There is more to an herbal pillow than a pleasant smell, he says, his voice a low rumble. He's not looking at you, but at the herbs in the bowl. Any fool can stuff a bag with potpourri. A true upholder knows the properties, the secrets. He picks up a few of the chamomile flowers and holds them in his palm. The merchant's wife asks for chamomile to bring her rest, and it will. It calms a churning stomach and soothes a fretful mind. It is an herb of peace. He lets the tiny flowers fall back into the bowl. Then he gestures to the other bunches of dried plants hanging from the rafters, their forms silhouetted in the dimming light. But what if the customer were a scholar, a man who reads late into the night by candlelight until his eyes ache? You shake your head, not knowing the answer. For him, Fitzwilliam says, pointing to a bunch of feathery green leaves, we would add rosemary. Rosemary, the old wives say, strengthens the memory. A scholar who sleeps on rosemary will awaken with his letters and figures clear in his mind. Or so he hopes. He says the last part with a familiar touch of dry skepticism, a hedge against sounding like a superstitious old fool. And for a soldier, he continues, warming to his subject. A man troubled by nightmares of the battlefield. For him, we would use St. John's wort and betony. They are herbs of courage. They are said to guard against dark spirits and fearful dreams. This is the heart of the craft, the knowledge that separates a master from a mere tradesman. It's a blend of traditional herbal medicine, folklore, and clever marketing. The widely accepted historical fact is that herbals books detailing the medicinal and practical uses of plants were incredibly popular manuscripts in the Middle Ages. Knowledge of herbal properties, both real and imagined, was widespread. A skilled craftsman like Fitzwilliam would have a deep, practical understanding of this lore, using it to customize his products and cater to the specific anxieties and desires of his clients. It was a way of selling not just comfort, but a solution, a personalized dream. He then points to a less pleasant-looking bundle of dried, grayish leaves. And this, he says, is mugwort. A quirky, lesser-known detail of this herbal trade is that not all herbs were for calming. Some were for stimulation. This we add in small amounts for those who wish for vivid or prophetic dreams. But you must be careful with it. Too much and the dreams can be unsettling. He gives a small, grim smile. The prioress of St. Helens once requested it. She later complained that she dreamed she was a goat for a full night. We used less the next time. The idea of a pious prioress dreaming she was a goat is so unexpected that you almost laugh. But you manage to stifle it into a cough. It's another one of his incredibly subtle, deadpan jokes. A small reward for paying attention. He explains that the art is in the blending. The dominant scent should be the one the customer requests, the lavender and chamomile in this case. The other herbs, the secret ingredients, are added in smaller quantities, their scents weaving through the primary aroma, working their subtle magic. It's a kind of alchemy, a transformation of simple dried plants into a prescription for the soul. And for freshness, he adds, reaching for a small wooden box. We add this. He opens it, and inside is a fine grayish powder. It is orris root, the dried and ground rhizome of the iris flower. It has a faint, violet-like scent, but its true power is as a fixative. This holds the other scents. It keeps the pillow fragrant for months, not weeks. It is the anchor for the perfume. He lets you take a pinch. It feels like fine, soft dust, and the scent is subtle and clean. You had no idea such a complex science existed behind something as simple as a pillow smell. Historians and archaeologists still wonder about the precise recipes and blends used. While texts describe the properties of individual herbs, the specific combinations used by craftsmen like Fitzwilliam were often trade secrets passed down from master to apprentice and rarely written down. Unearthing the faint residual pollen grains from a surviving medieval pillow might give us clues, but the true art of the blend, the exact proportions and preparations, is largely lost to time, a silent conversation between the pillow maker and the plants. Fitzwilliam's impromptu lecture is over as quickly as it began. He seems to retreat back into his usual gruff self, the brief window of openness closing. Enough talk, he says. Your stitches are getting crooked. Unpick the last row. You look down at your embroidery and see that he is right. While listening, your attention had drifted and the last few stitches of the letter K are slightly misaligned. With a sigh, you take your smallest pair of scissors and carefully snip the errant silk threads, your cheeks warm with a mild flush of embarrassment. He misses nothing. You begin the stitches again, this time with renewed focus, the master's words echoing in your mind. You are not just making a pillow. You are making a vessel for rest, for courage, for memory, for goat dreams. You are stitching together linen and down and herbs and secrets, creating a small, soft world where the sleeper can, for a few hours, find a measure of peace. As the last of the sun's light disappears from the workshop door, replaced by the deep blue of twilight, you feel a new sense of purpose in your quiet, careful work. The embroidery is finished. The merchant's mark, a deep blue K entwined with a teasel sprig, stands out in sharp, elegant relief against the cream-colored linen. You hold it up for Master Fitzwilliam's inspection. He takes the hoop from you and examines the stitching in the flickering light of the tallow candle he has just lit and placed on the worktable. Candle casts long, dancing shadows, turning the familiar workshop into a place of mystery and deep, dark corners. The small flame gutters and spits releasing a faint, greasy smell of burnt fat. Fitzwilliam runs a thumb over your stitches. He squints. He turns it over to examine the back, where the threads are knotted and tied off. For a silence that feels about a week long, he gives a single, perfunctory grunt. It will suffice. Coming from him, this is the equivalent of a poetic ode to your skill. He hands the hoop back to you. Now, pack the delivery. The delivery is Lady Annesley's pillow, the one he finished stuffing and sewing shut while you were preparing the herbs. It rests on a clean stool wrapped in a protective layer of undyed cloth. Your final task for the day, and one of your most important, is to transport this finished piece of luxury across the city to the lady's residence. This is a mission fraught with peril. Not the peril of bandits or highwaymen, but the far more mundane and far more likely dangers of a medieval city at dusk. Mud, stray animals, careless pedestrians, and the contents of chamber pots being emptied from overhead windows. Fitzwilliam hands you a small, folded piece of parchment with the lady's address scribbled on it. The house is on Silver Street, he says, near the Guildhall. Stay on the main thoroughfares. Keep to the light of the shop fronts as long as you can. And if you drop it, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. The unspoken threat hangs in the smoky air. You carefully take the wrapped pillow. It feels impossibly soft and light, a bundle of pure comfort. To protect it further, you place it inside a clean, sturdy canvas sack, which you sling carefully over your shoulder. The weight is negligible, but the responsibility feels immense. Stepping out of the workshop and into the street is like entering another world. The frantic, roaring energy of the daytime has subsided, replaced by a quieter, more cautious hum. The sky above the narrow gap between the houses is a deep, velvety indigo pricked with a few early stars. The air is cooler now, carrying the smell of 1,000 wood fires and cooking suppers, the scent of roasting meat, bubbling pottage, and baking apples. It's a comforting, domestic smell that blankets the city. Main streets, like Cheapside, are still relatively busy. The larger shops and taverns are lit from within, their open doorways and unshuttered windows spilling warm, yellow light onto the cobblestones. These pools of light are your stepping stones, islands of relative safety in the growing darkness. You walk quickly, your head on a swivel, your senses on high alert. The historical fact is that medieval cities were dark. There was no public street lighting. The only illumination came from private sources, the occasional lantern hung outside a wealthy home, the light from a tavern, or the moon, if it happened to be out and not obscured by clouds or the city's perpetual haze of smoke. Navigating the streets after sundown was a genuine challenge and for many a genuine danger. The official city regulations often required citizens to be indoors after the curfew bell rung at 8 or 9 o'clock to reduce crime and the risk of fire. As you turn off the main artery of Cheapside and onto a smaller side street, the darkness becomes deeper, the pools of light fewer and farther between. Here, the houses lean in closer to each other, their jettied upper floors almost touching, creating a tunnel-like effect. Ground underfoot is no longer paved with smooth cobblestones, but is a treacherous landscape of packed earth, loose stones, and sticky, ankle-deep mud. This is where your master's warning echoes in your ears. You slow your pace, picking your way forward with care. Your soft leather shoes are not waterproof, and you can already feel a cold dampness seeping into the soles. A cat darts out from a darkened doorway, a flash of shadow, and you nearly trip over it. You hear the sound of rough laughter from a nearby alehouse, a brief, rowdy burst of noise that is quickly swallowed by the night. This is where you encounter one of the most infamous hazards of medieval urban life. Window shutter creaks open on the second floor of the house just ahead of you. A voice shouts a cursory, slurred warning, guard is low. The old French for watch out for the water. You react instantly, pressing yourself flat against the wall beside you just as a cascade of liquid comes splashing down onto the spot where you were about to step. The smell that follows sour and ammoniac leaves no doubt as to the nature of the water. This practice, a lesser known but widely bemoaned reality, is the origin of the phrase gardy-loo, a warning cry that echoed through the streets of English and Scottish cities for centuries. Your heart is hammering, a near miss, the precious pillow is safe, but your nerves are frayed. You press on, your eyes straining to see in the gloam. You pass a church, its stone walls a looming mass of black against the slightly less black sky. A single candle flickers in a high window, a tiny point of holy light in the vast darkness. The silence here is deeper, broken only by the sound of your own breathing and the squelch of your shoes in the mud. Historians still wonder about the nocturnal soundscape of a medieval city. But the clamor of commerce silence. What were the dominant sounds? Was it truly quiet, or was it a different kind of noisy, filled with the barking of dogs, the cries of night watchmen, the chimes of monastic bells marking the night offices, and the snores of 1,000 sleeping citizens filtering through thin wooden walls? Your walk suggests it was a patchwork of sound and silence, of sudden noises and deep, unnerving quiet. Finally, you see a brighter glow ahead. You have reached Silver Street. This is a wealthier neighborhood. The houses are larger, set farther back from the street, and some of them have glazed windows. A rare luxury. More importantly, several have iron brackets by their front doors where servants have placed lanterns, their horn-paned sides casting a warm, steady glow. You find the house you're looking for, a grand timber-frame building 3 stories high. You knock on the heavy oak door, your knuckles making a solid, important sound. For a moment, a small grill in the door slides open and a pair of eyes peer out at you. "What do you want?" a suspicious voice asks. "A delivery," you say, your own voice sounding small. "Pillow for the Lady Annesley, from Master Fitzwilliam, the upholder." The grill slams shut. You hear the sound of a heavy bolt being drawn and the door creaks open. A stern-faced porter in household livery looks you up and down, then gestures for you to enter. You are about to step out of the dark, muddy streets of London and into a world of comfort and light, a world your hands have helped to create, but one you can only ever visit. You step across the threshold and the heavy oak door closes behind you with a solid, definitive thunk. The sound seals off the dark, chaotic world of the street, instantly replacing it with a realm of warmth, light, and astonishing quiet. You find yourself in a small entrance hall, the air still and warm. The first thing you notice is the light. It's not the flickering, greasy light of a single tallow candle, but the bright, clean glow of multiple beeswax candles burning in iron sconces on the walls. Their light is steady and golden, and it smells faintly of honey. This light alone is a profound statement of wealth. Beeswax is vastly more expensive than tallow, producing a brighter flame with less smoke and a far more pleasant scent. The second thing you notice is the floor. It is not cold flagstone or packed earth, but wide, smooth planks of polished oak. Your muddy shoes feel like a sacrilege upon their gleaming surface. You instinctively shuffle your feet, trying to rub off the worst of the grime, feeling intensely out of place. The porter, a man with a face that looks like it was carved from a block of disapproval, notices your discomfort and points to a rough-woven mat by the door. You gratefully scrape your shoes on it, a small, humbling ritual of entry. A woman, presumably a senior household servant, approaches. She is dressed in a dark, well-made woolen gown, a ring of iron keys jangling at her belt. Her expression is severe, but her eyes are less hostile than the porter's. "You have the pillow?" she asks, her voice crisp. You nod, slipping the canvas sack from your shoulder. With great care, you reach inside and draw out the pillow, still wrapped in its protective cloth. You peel back the cloth to reveal the finished product. In the bright candlelight, the fine linen seems to shine, the casing plump and perfectly formed. The servant takes it from you. Her hands, though work-worn, are gentle as she inspects it. She squeezes it, feels its weight, and brings it close to her face, likely checking for any stray smells of the workshop or the goose yard. She seems satisfied. Her ladyship is in her solar, she says. "Wait here." She turns and disappears up a wide wooden staircase that rises from the hall, the pillow held carefully in her arms. Porter remains by the door, his arms crossed, a silent, unmoving guardian. You are left standing awkwardly in the hall, a temporary figure in a world not your own. You take the opportunity to look around, absorbing the details of a life of relative luxury. The walls are not rough waterland daub, but are covered in plaster that has been painted a soft, earthy red. Hanging on one wall is a large tapestry, its woven threads depicting a hunting scene with men on horseback and long-legged dogs. Colors are faded, but the image is still vivid and full of life. A heavy wooden chest, bound with iron straps and intricately carved, sits against another wall. This glimpse inside a wealthy merchant or minor noble's home is a rare privilege. The historical fact is that the concept of the home as a private, comfortable space was just beginning to take shape for the affluent classes in the late Middle Ages. Specialized rooms were becoming more common. Instead of one great hall where the entire household ate, slept, and worked, grander houses now had separate chambers for sleeping, bed chambers, a private sitting room for the lady of the house, the solar, and parlors for receiving guests. This specialization of space was a revolution in domestic life. You can hear the faint murmur of voices from another room. clink of a metal cup on a wooden table, and a sudden peal of laughter. The air is warm, carrying the scent of beeswax, wood smoke from a well-tended hearth, and the rich, savory aroma of roasting meat. It is a world of managed comfort, a stark contrast to the chaotic, survival-based existence just outside the door. A quirky, lesser-known detail of these more comfortable homes was the use of rushes on the floor. While this house has fine wooden floors in the hall, many rooms would have been covered in a thick layer of sweet-smelling rushes or herbs, like meadowsweet or chamomile. This served as a form of insulation and a primitive air freshener. However, these rushes were not always changed as often as they should have been, and they could become a grimy, flea-infested repository for spilled food, drink, and other refuse. So while it might look and smell pleasant on the surface, the floor could be hiding a multitude of sins. You wonder what lies beneath the floorboards here. For what feels like an eternity, the servant returns, descending the staircase. She is no longer carrying the pillow. Her ladyship is pleased, she says, a statement delivered with the gravity of a royal decree. She is holding a small leather purse. From it, she counts out several silver coins into your palm. It is the payment for the pillow, a sum that represents weeks of your master's labor and your own. She then adds one extra small copper coin. For your trouble, she says. This is your tip. Your pourboire. It is not much enough to buy a small meat pie or a half pint of cheap ale, but it is yours. It is a direct acknowledgement of your role in this transaction, a recognition of your journey through the dark and muddy streets. You palm the coin, the feel of it solid and real against your skin. Master Fitzwilliam will send a receipt with the baker's boy in the morning, you say, reciting the line your master told you to say. The servant nods. The transaction is complete. The porter, who has been watching the entire exchange with an eagle eye, unbolts the door. The moment you step back outside, cold night air hits you like a slap. The door closes behind you with the same final, heavy thunk, and you are once again alone in the relative darkness of Silver Street. You carefully place the payment in the pouch at your belt, but you keep the small copper coin in your hand, closing your fist around it. The warmth of the house is already fading from memory, replaced by the chill of the night. The journey back to the workshop feels different. The weight of responsibility has been lifted, replaced by the satisfying clink of coins. You are no longer a nervous delivery boy, but a successful agent of your master's business. You retrace your steps, navigating the dark lanes with a bit more confidence. You sidestep a puddle you fell into on the way there. You hear another cry of guard as low, from a window above. But this time you are well clear, and you almost smile. You are learning the rhythms of the city, its hidden dangers and its secret paths. Historians still debate the social mobility of apprentices. Was it a rigid system, or was there a real opportunity for a boy like you to one day become a master like Fitzwilliam? The answer is complex. For some, apprenticeship was a path to prosperity and guild membership. For many others, it was simply a long period of low-paid labor that might lead to becoming a permanent journeyman, forever working for others. Your future is unwritten. But tonight, with a pocket full of your master's silver and a copper coin of your very own, the possibility of one day having a workshop of your own feels, for the first time, not entirely like a dream. You pick up your pace, your soft shoes making quiet sounds in the mud, eager to get back to the familiar, dusty smells of home. You arrive back at the workshop to find the heavy wooden shutter pulled halfway down over the open front, a sign that the business of the day is officially over. A narrow sliver of warm, flickering candlelight spills out onto the cobblestones, a welcoming beacon in the dark street. You duck underneath the shutter and step inside. The workshop is transformed by the night. In the solitary light of the single tallow candle on the work table, the room is a landscape of deep shadows and soft, glowing surfaces. Piles of straw, the sacks of wool, the bolts of linen, they all seem softer, their textures muted. The sharp edges of the workday have been smoothed away by the dim light. The air is still and quiet, the constant roaring soundtrack of London having faded to a distant, sleepy murmur. The only sounds are the gentle hiss and sputter of the candle flame and the scuttling of a mouse somewhere in the thatched roof above. Master Fitzwilliam is sitting on a stool by the hearth where a small fire has now been lit. The flames are low and gentle, casting a warm, orange glow on his face and making his gray beard seem almost silver. He is not working, he is staring into the fire, a mug of what is likely strong, dark ale held in his hands. Elspeth moves quietly in the background, preparing a simple evening meal of pottage, the thick, savory smell of the simmering stew filling the room. This is the private, domestic side of your master, a rare sight. The stern taskmaster has been replaced by a weary man at the end of a long day. He hears you enter and turns his head, his face half in shadow. "Well," he asks, his voice a low rumble, softer than usual. You walk over to him and present the leather purse. "She was pleased," you say, handing him the coins. He doesn't count them. He simply tests the weight of the purse in his hand, a skill honed by years of transactions, and gives a satisfied nod. He trusts you, or at the very least, he trusts the Lady Annesley's steward to pay the correct amount. He tucks the purse into his belt. "Any trouble on the road?" he asks. "A near miss with a chamber pot on Fuller's Lane," you say. For the first time all day, a genuine, unmistakable smile touches his lips. Brief crack in his stern facade. "Ah, Fuller's Lane. Aye, they're quick to empty their pots on that street." You learn to walk with your ears open. The smile vanishes as quickly as it appeared. But the memory of it lingers. It's a small moment of shared experience, a tiny acknowledgement that he, too, was once an apprentice walking these same dark streets, dodging the same hazards. "Now," he says, his voice returning to its usual business-like tone, "tidy the workshop. We've a busy day tomorrow, the Knowles' pillow to finish. This is the final ritual of the day. Winding down the workshop is as important as starting it up. It is a process of restoring order, of resetting the stage for the next day's work. You begin by sweeping the floor. Using a rough besom broom made of bundled twigs, you sweep the dust, straw fragments, stray feathers, and thread clippings of the day into a neat pile. The rhythmic swish-swish of the broom against the flagstones is a soothing, final sound. You collect the scraps of linen and offcuts of thread from the worktable, and put them in a designated basket. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest scraps can be used for patching, or shredded to become stuffing for a dog's bed or a pin cushion. This culture of reuse and repair is a fundamental historical fact of the pre-industrial world. Materials were expensive and labor was cheap, the exact opposite of our modern world. Throwing things away was a luxury few could afford. You roll up the remaining bolt of fine linen, tying it carefully with a strip of cloth to keep it clean, and place it back on its shelf. You gather the needles, the shears, the block of beeswax, and the other tools, wiping them clean and returning them to their proper places in the leather roll or wooden box. Everything has a place. This sense of order is a bulwark against the chaos of the world outside. In the workshop, at least, things can be controlled, organized, and put right. A quirky, lesser-known detail about medieval workshops is that they were often subject to guild inspections. Representatives from the upholders' company could, in theory, visit at any time to inspect the quality of materials and workmanship. A messy, disorganized workshop might be seen as a sign of a careless craftsman, potentially leading to fines or censure. So, this nightly tidying is not just for your master's peace of mind. It is a matter of professional pride and security. As you work, Elspeth ladles the thick, steaming pottage into 3 wooden bowls. The fire in the hearth crackles merrily, the flames dancing and casting shifting patterns of light on the timber beams above. The smell is wonderful, a rich, savory mix of vegetables, grains, and perhaps a hint of smoked bacon. Your stomach rumbles loudly in the quiet room. You finish your tidying. The worktable is clear, the tools are put away, the floor is swept. The workshop, bathed in the soft firelight, looks peaceful, asleep. The day's labor has been packed away, and the space feels calm and expectant, waiting for the morning to come. Fitzwilliam gestures with his head towards the table where the bowls are waiting. "Sit, eat." You take your place at the table, a familiar routine. You, your master, and his wife eat your evening meal together in near silence. The silence is not awkward or tense. It is the comfortable silence of people who spend all their waking hours together and have little need for small talk. Pottage is hot and filling, a comforting weight in your stomach. You eat greedily, using a chunk of bread to scrape the bowl clean. Historians still debate the emotional dynamics of a master's household. Was an apprentice treated like a son, a servant, or simply a cheap laborer? The reality was likely a complex and often contradictory mix of all three. In this moment, sharing a simple meal by the fire, the relationship feels almost familial. You are part of this small, self-contained unit bound together by the rhythms of work and rest. At other times, when he is barking orders or criticizing your stitching, he is every inch the stern master. It is a relationship of dependency and obligation. But within that rigid framework, there's room for these quiet moments of shared humanity. When the meal is over, you take the wooden bowls to a bucket of water to be washed. Elspeth is already baking the fire for the night, covering the glowing embers with ash so they will smolder until morning, ready to be revived. Master Fitzwilliam stands up, stretches his back with a groan, and heads towards the small, curtained-off alcove at the back of the workshop that serves as his and Elspeth's bedchamber. He pauses for a moment before disappearing behind the curtain. "Don't stay up late wasting the candle," he says over his shoulder. It is his version of good night. You are left alone in the workshop, the single candle on the table your only companion. The day's work is done. The city is quiet. It is time to climb the ladder back to your straw mattress. In the attic, but you linger for a moment, enjoying the profound peace of the sleeping workshop. You linger for a moment in the deep, firelit quiet of the workshop. The day has been long, a journey through a dozen different textures and smells, from the scratch of straw to the silkiness of goose down, from the chaos of Cheapside to the polished stillness of a noblewoman's home. The single candle on the worktable burns low, the flame a tiny, golden teardrop in the immense darkness. You should go up to your attic bed, but you're reluctant to let the day end. Just as you are about to snuff out the candle, Master Fitzwilliam's voice comes from the curtained alcove. "Leave the candle. Come here." His voice is low, stripped of its usual commanding tone. It's a quiet invitation, an unusual departure from the evening routine. Puzzled, you walk over to the hearth, where the banked fire still gives off a gentle, radiating warmth. Fitzwilliam is sitting on a low stool just inside his bedchamber, the curtain pulled back slightly. He is not prepared for sleep, but is simply sitting in the near dark, his ale mug refilled. He gestures to another stool nearby. You sit, a sense of quiet anticipation settling over you. These moments of quiet conversation are rare and, you've learned, often precede a lesson of a different kind. He is silent for a long time, staring at the glowing embers of the fire. The only sound is the faint hiss of the tallow candle and the distant, mournful cry of a night watchman calling out the hour. All is well, and the hour is late. That pillow for the Lady Annesley, Fitzwilliam finally says, his voice a thoughtful rumble. It was good work. Fine linen, the best down. Pillow fit for a queen's lady in waiting. But it is just a pillow. He takes a long drink from his mug. It is not a pillow of legend. You wait, knowing a story is coming. Your master is not a man for idle chatter. When he speaks at length, it is to impart a piece of wisdom, a trade secret, or a cautionary tale. When I was an apprentice, he begins, not much older than you are now, my own master, old John of your command, so skilled he could stitch a straight seam in the dark during an earthquake, he received a commission. The most important commission of his life. It came from the household of the king himself, Richard II. Your eyes widen, the king. You have seen King Richard only once. A distant figure in a magnificent procession. A flash of velvet and gold surrounded by knights and banners. He is a figure of almost mythical status, more a character in a story than a real person. The king, Fitzwilliam continues, a faint, nostalgic smile on his face, was a man who prized comfort. He was a great patron of the arts, of fine clothes, of beautiful things, and he suffered from terrible headaches. His physicians tried everything, potions, bloodletting, prayers. Nothing worked. So, the king's chamberlain, a man with more sense than the physicians, decided the problem might be simpler. He decided the king needed a new pillow. This story touches on a widely accepted historical fact. King Richard II reigned 1377 to 1399. Was known for his lavish and refined court. He had a taste for luxury, fine food, and fashionable clothing, which often put him at odds with his more martial and austere nobles. The idea that he would commission a bespoke, state-of-the-art pillow is entirely in keeping with his character. He was a king who would have understood the value of a good night's sleep. So the order came to my master, John of York, the finest upholder in London, not just for a pillow, but for the pillow, a pillow that would cure the king's headaches and bring him peaceful sleep. The pressure was immense if the king was pleased. My master's fortune was made if he was displeased. Fitzwilliam lets the implication hang in the air. We spent a month on that pillow, he says, his eyes focused on a distant memory. A whole month. We didn't use goose down, no. For the king, we used the down of the eider duck, brought by merchants all the way from the northern isles. It is the softest, lightest, most precious down in all the world. It is so fine, a whole pillow's worth can be held into cupped hands and weighs almost nothing. The use of eiderdown is a fascinating, lesser-known detail. Eiderdown was and still is one of the most prized materials for bedding in the world. The female eider duck plucks the incredibly fine down from her own breast to line her nest. The down is then harvested from the nests after the ducklings have left. It is an incredibly laborious and sustainable process, resulting in a material with unparalleled insulating properties and softness. For a king, only the rarest and best would do. The casing was not linen, he goes on, his voice almost a whisper. It was silk, a deep blue silk from Persia, so fine you could read a letter through it. And the embroidery, my master's wife, and her daughters worked for weeks, stitching the king's personal emblem, the white hart, in thread made of real silver. He pauses, lost in the grandeur of the memory. And the herbs. My master consulted with apothecaries, with monks who tended monastery gardens, even with a woman from the fens who was said to know the old ways. We blended a dozen different herbs. Lavender and chamomile, of course, but also woodruff for tranquility, cosmary to ward off evil humors, and a single tiny sprig of mandrake root for deep and dreamless sleep. The story is spellbinding. You can picture the workshop, the flurry of activity, the sense of intense, nervous excitement. You, who were so proud of your work on a merchant's pillow, can barely conceive of the skill and pressure involved in such a creation. When it was finished, Fitzwilliam says, his voice growing quiet, it was not just a pillow. It was a jewel, a work of art, an answered prayer in silk and down. And the king, you ask, unable to help yourself. Was he pleased? Did it cure his headaches? Fitzwilliam looks at you, his eyes glinting in the firelight. And this is where the story pivots, becoming not just a tale of craft, but a lesson in life. We never found out, you stare at him, confused. The pillow was delivered to the palace at Westminster. My master received a handsome payment, enough to buy this very workshop and set himself up for life. But we never received a word from the king. Not of thanks, not of complaint, nothing. Historians, of course, still wonder about the intimate, personal details of a monarch's life. Did Richard II like his pillow? It's a question that history, with its focus on battles, treaties, and successions, will never answer. The fate of that one perfect pillow is lost, a tiny, soft footnote in a grand, tumultuous reign. That, Fitzwilliam says, leaning forward slightly, is the most important lesson of our trade. You pour your heart and all your skill into your work. You create the most perfect thing you can, and then you let it go. It leaves your hands and has its own life. It becomes a small, silent part of someone else's story. You will almost never know the dreams it cradles. Your reward is not in the praise. It is here. He taps his own chest with a thick finger. It is in the knowing that you did the work, and you did it well. That is all a craftsman can ever truly own. He leans back, the story finished. He drains the last of his ale and stands up. It is late, he says, his voice once again that of the master. Get to your bed. Snuff the candle on your way. He disappears behind the curtain, leaving you alone with the dying fire and the epic tale of the king's pillow. You sit for a moment longer, the story echoing in the quiet room. You look at your own hands, still slightly stained from the day's work. You understand now. The work is not just a means to an end. The work is the thing itself. The pride is in the doing. With a new sense of purpose, you stand up, blow out the candle flame, plunging the room into near total darkness, and make your way to the ladder that leads to your attic and your own humble straw-stuffed pillow. You climb the familiar wooden ladder, your hands finding the worn, smooth rungs in the darkness. The air grows cooler as you ascend, leaving the lingering warmth of the hearth behind. You emerge into the attic, a world of deep, silent shadows under the steep pitch of the roof. The tiny, unshuttered window is a pale gray rectangle against the black, and through it you can see a sky strewn with a breathtaking multitude of stars. Out here, away from the narrow, canyon-like streets, the sky opens up. There is no electric glow from the city below to wash them out, and the stars are brilliant, cold, and clear. You can see the wide, milky band of the galaxy stretching overhead, a sight so common to your eyes that you barely register its awesome scale, yet so rare to a modern city dweller. It is a profound, silent beauty that costs nothing and belongs to everyone. You move quietly to your straw tick in the corner. Thomas, the baker's apprentice, is already asleep, a lump under a thin wool blanket. His breathing is a soft, rhythmic whisper, punctuated by the occasional tiny snore. You stand for a moment by the window, looking out over the sleeping city. From this vantage point, London is transformed. Chaotic, noisy noisy, sprawling beast of the daytime is now a quiet, dreaming giant. The jumble of rooftops is a dark, rolling landscape under the starlight. Here and there, a single point of light still flickers, a candle in the room of a sick person, a lantern by the gate of a monastery where the monks are rising for their midnight prayers, the dying embers of a baker's oven. But mostly, there is darkness, a deep, peaceful, and all-encompassing darkness. The sounds are different, too. The roar of commerce is gone, replaced by a softer, more intimate chorus. You can hear the distant, lonely barking of a dog, the hoot of an owl from a church belfry, and the faint, almost imperceptible creak and groan of 100 timber-framed houses settling in the cool night air. The city breathes. It is a gentler sound than its daytime shout. Your walk home is this quiet journey. You move through the now unfamiliar streets of your own mind, retracing the steps of your day. You feel the grit of the Cheapside market under your feet, the cold shock of the feather-washing water on your hands, the satisfying pull of a waxed thread through fine linen. You see the suspicious eyes of the porter, the gleaming wood of the Lady Annesley's floor, the deep blue of the merchant's silk thread. Each memory is a stepping stone leading you to this quiet attic room. This is a moment of pure transition. The historical fact is that the division between day and night was far more absolute in the medieval world than it is for us. Night was a different kingdom with different rules and different dangers. For most people, the setting of the sun meant the end of productive work and a retreat into the home. It was a time for storytelling, for mending, for prayer, or simply for the deep, dreamless sleep of the exhausted. As you stand by the window, you think about your master's story, the king's pillow. It seems impossibly grand, a fairy tale of craft, and yet, the lesson at its heart feels solid and true. The pride is in the doing. You look down at your own hands in the faint starlight. They are not the hands of a king or a nobleman. They are the hands of a maker. They are scratched from handling straw, calloused from the needle, and still faintly smell of beeswax and dried lavender. They are hands that are learning a skill, a trade, a quiet art. They are useful hands, and in that simple fact, there is a deep and abiding sense of peace. A quirky, lesser-known detail of medieval life is the sheer pervasiveness of the stars. With no light pollution, celestial events, comets, meteor showers. The phases of the moon were not just astronomical curiosities, but were deeply woven into the fabric of culture, folklore, and religion. People navigated by the stars, planted crops by them, and told stories about the constellations. The night sky was a familiar map, a clock, and a book of legends, far more present and meaningful in their lives than it is in ours. You can easily pick out the familiar shapes of the plow, and the North Star, the unmoving point around which the entire heaven seemed to turn. It is a comforting point of constancy in a changeable world. You think about all the other people sleeping in the city around you. Lady Annesley, her head now resting on the soft, clean pillow you delivered. Thomas Knowles, the wool merchant dreaming of profits in shipping lanes. Grumpy Porter, the severe-looking servant, the hundreds of other apprentices like you and Thomas and William, all curled up on their own simple beds. The city is a vast collection of dreams, a library of sleeping minds. And you, in your own small way, are one of the librarians. You provide the soft pages on which those dreams are written. Historians still wonder about the medieval perception of night and darkness. Was it primarily a time of fear associated with crime, supernatural threats, and the unknown? Or was it a time of peace, a welcome respite from the labors of the day and a time for community and family in the close confines of the home? The truth is likely that it was both. For you, standing here in the safety of your attic, looking out at the peaceful, stardusted city, it feels like the latter, the fears of the night, the chamber pots. The dark alleys are a memory of the journey, not the destination. The destination is this quiet room, this moment of peace. A soft breeze drifts in through the open window, cool and clean. It carries the faint, distant scent of the river and the damp earth. It feels like the city taking a long, deep, cleansing breath. You feel your own shoulders relax, the last of the day's tension releasing its grip. The excitement of the delivery, the focus of the embroidery, the magic of your master's story, it all begins to soften, to blur at the edges, replaced by a simple, profound weariness. The walk home is over. The journey through the city streets has ended, and now the final, shorter journey awaits, the one into sleep. You turn from the window, leaving the stars to the silent, cosmic dance. The world outside has been put to bed. It is now your turn. You move towards your corner, towards the rustling, familiar comfort of your own simple pillow, the day's work finally, truly done. reach your small corner of the attic, the space that is, for now, yours. The floorboards are bare and splintery under your feet. There is no fine oak here, no tapestries on the walls. There's just the rough timber frame of the house, the thatched roof above, and your bed a simple linen sack, a tick filled with straw. It lies on the floor, a lumpy, unassuming rectangle that holds the distinct shape of your body, a hollow cradle worn into it by 100 nights of sleep. This is the end of the line. This is where the pillow maker comes to rest, after a day spent crafting clouds of comfort for others. From the no-nonsense practicality of an innkeeper's bolsters, to the bespoke luxury of a noble woman's headrest, you have arrived at the final pillow of the day, your own. You pull your tunic off over your head, the ruffle scratching your skin for a moment. You fold it, a habit born of necessity to keep it from getting hopelessly wrinkled, and place it at the foot of your mattress. The night air from the open window raises goosebumps on your arms. You are left in your simple linen undershirt and breeches, the basic uniform of sleep for someone of your station. You sit down on the edge of your straw tick. It rustles loudly in the quiet attic, a dry, whispering sound that is as familiar to you as your own breathing. You run your hand over its surface. The linen casing is coarse, patched in one corner where it had worn thin. It is nothing like the fine, smooth fabric you worked with today. It is a textile of pure function, and the stuffing. You press down on it. It's firm, unyielding. There is no soft, gentle give, no cloud-like loft. It is packed with straw, the same humble golden straw you stuffed into the pillows for the crooked billet in. Over the months, the straw has been compressed by your weight, broken down into smaller, dustier fragments. It offers support, but not softness. It is, by any measure, a profoundly uncomfortable-looking object. And yet, as you lie down and pull the thin, scratchy-wool blanket over you, it feels like the most welcoming bed in the world. Your body knows its shape. Your muscles, aching from a day of labor, seem to sigh in relief as they settle into the familiar hollow your head finds its accustomed spot on your pillow. Your pillow. It is, like your mattress, a small linen sack stuffed with straw. You made it yourself not long after you first arrived as an apprentice. Your stitching on it is clumsy, the work of a novice with uneven lengths and crooked lines that would make Master Fitzwilliam wince. The straw inside is packed a little too tightly on one side, giving it a permanent slight tilt. It is a deeply flawed, amateurish piece of work. It is also, at this moment, an object of profound comfort. The historical fact is that for the majority of people throughout history, comfort was relative. Your straw pillow, which would feel impossibly harsh to a modern sleeper, is a significant step up from what many people had. Poorest of the poor might sleep with their head on a bundled-up cloak, a pile of rags, or even a simple log of wood. Your pillow, humble as it is, elevates your head, aligns your spine, and is a designated object for rest. In the context of your world, it is a small but meaningful luxury. You turn onto your side, pulling your knees up slightly. The straw rustles and crunches under your ear, a sound as soothing as rainfall on a roof. You can smell its faint, sweet, dusty scent. Perfume of a summer field brought indoors is the smell of your own sleep, the scent of your own small corner of the world. As you lie here on the cusp of sleep, you think about the strange journey a pillow takes. It begins as raw material scattered across the landscape, a goose grazing by a river, a field of flax waving in the wind, a sheep on a hillside, a stalk of wheat in a farmer's field. It is gathered, processed, cleaned, and refined by a dozen different hands before it ever reaches your workshop. And then, in your hands, it undergoes its final transformation, is cut, stitched, stuffed, and shaped into an object of comfort, an invitation to dream. And then it is sent back out into the world, to a king's chamber or a traveler's inn or a lady's solar to play its small, silent role in the lives of strangers. A quirky, lesser-known detail about medieval sleep is the communal nature of it. Not only did you share your attic with Thomas, but in many households, entire families, along with servants, would sleep together in one great room, sometimes even in one enormous bed. The idea of a private bedroom was a luxury reserved for the very wealthy. Your small, shared space in the attic with just one other person offers a level of privacy that many people in the city would envy. You are alone with your thoughts, your tired body, and your simple straw pillow. You close your eyes. The darkness behind your eyelids is complete. The last vestiges of the days image the glint of a needle, the glow of a candle. The deep blue of silk fade away. The sounds of the city have vanished, replaced by the soft whisper of Thomas's breathing and the gentle thrum of your own heartbeat in your ear. scientists still wonder if people in the pre-industrial world slept differently than we do. Some theories, based on mentions in old texts of a first sleep and second sleep, suggest that people may have had a segmented sleep pattern, sleeping for a few hours, waking in the middle of the night for an hour or two of quiet activity like praying, reading, or talking, and then returning to sleep until morning. Was your master sitting by the fire with his ale in this quiet, wakeful period? Or was he just a man unwinding after a long day? The true nature of your ancestors' slumber remains a gentle mystery. For you, however, sleep is not a mystery. It is a necessity. It is a tide pulling you away from the shore of wakefulness. You feel your thoughts begin to drift and unravel. The sharp edges of memory soften. The story of the king's pillow blends with the smell of lavender, the rumble of a cart, the warmth of the pottage. It all becomes a gentle, meaningless soup. Your body grows heavy, sinking deeper into the rustling straw. The world of labor, of masters and apprentices, of coins and commissions, fades into an indistinct, distant murmur. Your simple straw pillow, the product of your own unskilled hands, does its job perfectly. It holds your head. It supports your dreams. It is enough. On this humble sack of straw, pillow maker finally finds his own rest, drifting into the deep, dark, peaceful sleep he has spent all day crafting for others. The last thought to drift through your mind is not a thought at all, but a feeling, a sense of quiet satisfaction. The day is done. The work was good. And now there is only rest. Your breathing slows, deepening into a steady, peaceful rhythm, a soft, slow tide rising and falling in the quiet of the attic. The world outside, with its muddy streets and shouting merchants, its noble ladies and grumpy masters, fades into an impossibly distant hum, a story that someone else will have to finish tomorrow. For now, there is only the soft, deep, and welcoming darkness. You feel your body growing heavier, sinking down into the supportive cradle of your straw mattress, a comforting weight that anchors you to your small, safe space in the world. Each breath out is a release, a letting go of the day's labor, the day's worries, the very memory of your own tired muscles, and each breath in is a gentle wave of peace washing over you, carrying you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness. The gentle rustle of the straw beneath your ear is a soft, constant whisper, a lullaby from the earth itself, a story of summer fields and warm sun. Let that sound be an anchor for your drifting mind. Let it be the only thing you hear, a soft, steady, rustling sound. As your breathing slows and the last remnants of thought dissolve like mist in the morning sun, there is nothing left to do now, nothing to think, nothing to solve. There is only the gentle, effortless act of letting go, of allowing yourself to drift on this quiet, peaceful current, down into the deep, restorative quiet of a good night's sleep. The pillow maker is dreaming now, and you can too.